Hi, we are starting this new webinar from the World Business Angel Investment Forum, and the first speaker will be the president of our Global Women Leader Committee, Swati Mandela. It's a real pleasure to introduce her. And I hope we are just waiting to listen her about their comments in the tourism and the role of women and innovation within the global ecosystem. Swati, you can start whenever it's okay for you. I think you have your microphone off, Swati.
Can you hear me
now? Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, great. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome all the speakers who've agreed to speak on today's panel. I'm humbled to be amongst your presence, and I look forward to hearing your insights on today's very interesting topic. I'd like to welcome Valentine, Malemwa. I'm not sure if Natalia's on yet, but I would like to welcome her as well. And
Cheers on.
Okay, great. And obviously to our High Commissioner from Spain, Miguel, who is going to moderate this panel. Before I begin on today's discussion, I just would like to turn my attention and everyone's attention to what's happening in the US. I am sure, like many others, have been shocked to the depths of my being at the brutal murder of George Floyd. I myself send my sincere and heartfelt condolences to his family in the United States of America, who are, as we speak, preparing to lay him to rest. I grieve for his family and the countless other families who've lost family members and their lives at the hands of the brutal system at which they found themselves. Their tragic deaths and those of countless of their compatriots have highlighted global systemic racism, which sees Black people as targets simply because they are Black. In my family, I have an American brother, I have American nieces and nephews, my daughter is Ghanaian, I have Zimbabwean blood, Congolese blood, and I even have Belgian blood, all of whom are Black people. Each of them is growing up in a world in which wherever they go, they will be seen first as a criminal before they are seen as a human being. Their lives will always be at risk because of the color of their skin. I join the global chorus of enough is enough. It is time to finally put an end to this scourge. Black Lives Matter. Both my grandparents devoted their lives to the fight against racism and were praised for it. That struggle has not ended, and it is up to all of us to persist until racism is eradicated from every heart, mind, and action in every part of the globe. I'd like to quote my grandfather, who once said, "Whatever the time it will take, we will not tire." The very fact that racism degrades both the perpetrator and the victim commands that if we are true to our commitment to protect human dignity, we fight on until victory is achieved. May the souls of our dearly departed rest in eternal peace as we continue to battle racism in their memory. I'd like to now turn my attention to today's topic, which is to address the international travel and tourism industry and how tourism can remain resilient during the COVID crisis and play a vital role in assisting global economic recovery. Travel and tourism is among the most affected sectors and prospects for the year and has been downgraded several times. The industry is only expected to start recovering and seeing the revival of international demand in 2021. This will have a tremendous impact on both small and large players in the industry, as well as the entire value chain. Business plans and industry practices have to be adjusted, and only the resilient players are likely to continue. Our esteemed speakers today will shortly be sharing their insights as considerable challenges remain ahead, and they will cover questions such as what will be the nature of the paradigm shift in the tourism sector, and what kind of adjustments will it require? What kind of business model disruption is needed for tourism to bounce back? What are the new opportunities might open for female entrepreneurship? What are the opportunities and challenges for innovation and investments in tourism? The UNWTO maintains that trust will be the new currency of our new normal and points out that tourism is ideally positioned to be the vehicle to channel trust. I can only echo the importance of trust amongst the global community as the underlying value for post-COVID-19 international recovery. The role of tourism in developing countries such as those in Africa is of great importance, and this rings true for those issues not related to the pandemic. Within the tourism sector, we see many initiatives focused on rural communities, including employment and transformation, the establishment of sustainable value chains, local supply chain development, environmental considerations, and building a strong identification within the region, the people and their stories. It is important that we explore the new dynamics and trends that will shape the future of tourism after the pandemic, and I encourage women's participation in the global investment and entrepreneurship ecosystem to join this effort. We should highlight the strengths in which women have contributed to the development of the tourism sector in the past and which can now help to navigate through these very difficult times that we're all facing. I encourage us females to unite ourselves in these efforts, which will enable us to respond to our rapidly changing world. I now would like to hand over to you, Miguel. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Sawati. Now it's a pleasure to introduce to Natalia Bayona, who is the leader of the innovation innovation and everything that is related to innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment within the World Travel Organization, which is an organization from the United Nations. And I know her from our meetings in Madrid in South Summit and other entrepreneurial ecosystems. So I know that she has around 15 minutes to talk, and she will be leaving after because she has another scheduled meeting. So I really thank her for finding the time to be with us. Natalia, is whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Swati, thank you so much, and to all the colleagues that are here today. To me, it's a pleasure to lead innovation, digital transformation, and investments inside the United Nations World Tourism Organization. And basically, as you know, tourism was one of the most trending sectors when it comes to technology and when it comes to economic growth. So you have seen, we as a sector, we were growing for 10 years, consecutive 10 years. So that was not only amazing because of course it was the only economic sector that was rising in that way, but also because the most number of women and youth that are employed in the world are in the tourism sector. So that's amazing as well. Of course, after COVID-19, things has been changing, and now we have 3 scenarios regarding, because we have 100% of the world closed. So we are today under a very strong challenge, that is what would happen with tourism. So the good news is that, of course, the tourism sector is one of the most resilient sectors, but of course, we are under challenging times. So if we open the world in July, the whole world, the tourism will decrease 60% this year. If we open in August, tourism will decrease 70%. And if the whole world opens once again in December, we will decrease 80%. So, as you have seen, investments, jobs, productivity, of course, are under risk. And basically, what are we doing inside the UNWTO to recover tourism? We created the first global tourism crisis committee that, of course, was integrated by the different UN agencies that have to be with tourism. So ILO for jobs, ICAO for everything regarding airlines and flights, IATA, of course, ASI, the International Association of Airports, CLIA regarding cruises, WPC regarding the private sector, etc., OECD. So what we developed, representing, of course, 160 countries that are part of the UNWTO, was, of course, to work with them every 2 weeks regarding what were like the main concerns of the whole regions on this tourism recovery. So that's why we launched regarding innovation the UNWTO Healing Solutions Challenge that was supported by the WHO, and basically was a challenge that was focused on recovering tourism as a destination, recover the economics of tourism as an industry, and recovering people regarding health and safety for the tourists. The good thing is that we received more than 1,000 applications from more than 100 countries. We had finalists from all around the world, and now we are working hard with those startups to introduce them to governments, to the ministers, to investors, and of course to the private sector, because in that way we can help the ecosystem to grow, and on the other side we can help to materialize those projects and to scale them up. Second of all, we created some guidelines to recover tourism, and those guidelines are, of course, like an ABC for all the governments in order to recover tourism. And under those guidelines, that of course I am not going to talk today about the whole guidelines, but what I would like to talk today is about the 7 priorities we have regarding those guidelines that we created. So the first guideline or the first priority is regarding recovering trust. And that's very important because, of course, if you don't recover trust, there's no tourism. One of the most amazing jobs I have had in my life was my first job when I was 20 years old. That was changing Colombia's image abroad. So I know pretty well when people don't trust you, because my country is absolutely spectacular, but 15 years ago, no one cared about Colombia because, of course, it had an image that was, of course, wrong about violence, etc., because, of course, there were some history tipping points that didn't help Colombia. And nowadays is one of the most important countries of the region of Latin America. The thing is that I am bringing this into the attention as an example, because when you can be beautiful, but it doesn't matter if you tell the world that you're beautiful if others don't think that you're beautiful. So it doesn't matter that you still promote a lot of countries, but if the tourist doesn't gain trust again, it would be very difficult to recover tourism. So that's why our suggestions here regarding tourism promotion is not only talking about how beautiful the destinations are, is how healthy and how secure they are. So that's why we need to talk with top bloggers, influencers, media, and of course to do a different promotional strategy for the destinations. As you know, Africa is one of the most hurt regions, and just yesterday we launched a new challenge that is Inspiring Africa Challenge, that is focused to bring top people that are, or innovators that are working in the advertising or marketing sector, that wants to create the new tourism promotional campaign for Africa to recover trust and confidence. So when you have the stamp of the UN, when you have the stamp of the media, when you have the stamp of the foreign tourists that are saying that you are good and that they are saying that you're safe, in that way you are recovering trust. So our message here with our first priority is that, of course, we need to work together, because this is not about tour operators, this is not about airlines, this is not about destinations, it's about the whole sector. So the most empowered we are, the better. I don't know if you have seen, but Qatar Airways, that is the biggest airline in the world, is working pretty hard with the destinations. They have opened 53 destinations, but they are not doing the typical promotional campaign. They are working with destinations, working with testimonials, because they need to recover confidence. If not, people won't begin to fly. It doesn't matter if I am in Europe. 50% of the international tourism comes to Europe, but as you know, Spain, Italy, France were the most hurt countries in Europe. So if we don't recover confidence in those countries, we are not doing anything. So that's like the first priority. The second priority is focused on opening borders with responsibility. So what we do here is, of course, we have to do some guidelines with ICAO, with the train sector, with the cruise sector. Why? Because of course, if we don't open borders, of course, we're done. There's no tourism here. But on the other side, you cannot jump and open massive tourism once again without any precaution. So we need to assure that the protocols are there and that the protocols can live without hurting the economy, because this is very important. In some countries, people think that the economy is fighting with health, and that's nothing to do. They are complementary. So imagine that I am super healthy, but I don't have a job, or imagine that I have a job, but I am unhealthy. So that's why we have to go quite to be really responsible on the way we are opening borders, because of course we need to open commerce, tourism, trade again. But of course we have to do it with responsibility in order not to import massive cases from other countries. Inside the countries, of course, between one region and another region is the same case. So today in Madrid, we are really advanced. We are in phase 2, but of course we cannot travel to other regions that are phase 3, because of course in Madrid was one of the epicenters in Spain. So that when I am talking about opening borders with responsibilities, of course, opening borders, but with some limitations at least at first, in order to control the people that are coming to the country, the controls that you are doing when they are entering the city, etc., etc. And of course, it has to be aligned with an economic recovery in order to help the economy to grow once again. Third of all is liquidity to protect jobs. And this is crucial because, of course, tourism, of course, is one of the top sectors regarding employment. But in Latin America, in emerging countries, as the Pacific, Latin America, Africa, most of the informality or the informal jobs are in tourism, or the unprofessional jobs are in tourism. So that's a challenge because, of course, today, under a lockdown, people that used to sell lemonade in the street or a tourist guide, those, of course, has been more hurt than the legal and professional ones. So we need to assure from the national governments, and our advice here is to for the governments is to create. I have seen spectacular cases when, for example, there is a bourse, a national and a public bourse, to pay at least the minimum salary to those informal jobs, because as you know, if there's no tourism, there's no lemonade to sell. If we are under lockdown, there's no tourism guide to work. So we need liquidity inside the countries to protect those jobs, because not because they're low qualified, it's because part of the economy moves in half of the world thanks to those mini SMEs. And as I always say in my presentations, a tourism guide is an SME, because of course it's a person that is working so hard to promote and to study really well the different attractions that he or she is promoting. So we need to help them On the other side, and this is the fourth priority, is creating added value jobs thanks to technology. And this is very important. The world has become 100% digital today. So, of course, I am, of course, an ambassador of digital transformation, and I love digital transformation. But what I love from the pandemic is that, of course, digital transformation was a nice to have inside most of the tourism companies. Today is a must because, of course, we are working today remotely. We are doing home office, and some people has seen how efficient it is. So the good thing is that, of course, these kind of scenarios today, we are in a very serious conference, but of course, thanks to these webinars, etc., new profiles are created for tourism. So for example, cybersecurity profiles, when you are doing a board, in the past, they were presential board of members. Nowadays, it's digital. But of course, if you are an airline or a big hotel, or if you are a government and you are doing a minister's council, you cannot do a free Zoom because, of course, you know the risks of having the information hacked. So that's why bringing a person that knows about cyber security, bringing a person that knows about big data analytics to see what type of people are looking at you on the webinars, having a digital transformation analyst, having a data scientist to code and to develop new platforms where you can run different models, predictive models, to see how tourists can come and to avoid over tourism. Those are new profiles that are created thanks to technology. So that's our fourth priority. That is how we do and how as a sector we can lead by example. And under this pandemic, we create new jobs that have added value and of course that are aligned with technology. And that's why we are working so hard. I think that in a couple of months we are working with some strong partners to launch the first UNWTO job factory that would be a platform where people would be able to know where are like the tech profiles in the tourism sector and can apply easily in one place, because what we want is really to promote that this is not only a technological sector, but also that it's a sector that is creating added value jobs after COVID-19. Our fifth priority is about my passion, that is innovation and sustainability. So the fifth priority is innovation and sustainability are the new normal. And you have, thanks to COVID-19, we were obliged to innovate, to change the way we were working, to change the way tourism packages were sold, the way we were promoting the destinations, and we became digital. And of course, innovation is not only about technology; it's about how you change different processes to be more efficient inside your company. So, of course, after this pandemic, everyone is trying to be more efficient, less bureaucrat in that way, and that's good, of course, because that is helping us to be a more linear sector. But of course, if innovation is the new normal, we need to still innovating in order to move quickly under these challenges. And regarding sustainability as well, because we did some mistakes in the past, and of course, over tourism was one of the mistakes. So as you know, big capitals were really afraid this year and the past year about tourism, because we grew that fast that of course the world capitals of the world were overcrowded, and of course the citizens didn't like tourism anymore. And now, because we are 100% closed, it's an opportunity to rethink the way we want tourism again, a more responsible tourism, a more inclusive tourism, a more social impact tourism, a more community-based tourism where people, communities, citizens can join the sector, the most human economic sector, and where you can really have an impact on the territory, and not only for the airline, for the hotel, for the cruise. So if we work well, if the cities work well, if the tourism promotion boards work well, and I am really convinced about this, we can rethink a new tourism model, a more sustainable model. The sixth priority is aligned and coordinated protocols. That's why we created the guidelines, because of course we cannot, the public sector cannot go from one side and the private sector from another side. So we have to be really aligned. We have to learn from the mistakes in the past. During 9/11, one of the most important mistakes was that every single sector had its own protocols. So, for example, if I was trying to take a flight from Mexico to New York, the protocols and the experience of the tourist in Mexico was one, in New York was another one. So that cannot happen again. If we want to recover confidence, the experience of the tourist has to be really good. Imagine that if I am going to Mexico City, I am just giving examples. I need to do a rapid test. Then if I am going to Miami, there are 2 rapid tests. Then if I am going to Washington, I have to take 10 security controls and health controls. So if you do that, and if we do that, of course, we are not advancing on gaining confidence and trust. So that's why we need the same protocols, or at least the basis of the protocols, in order to have an organized sector. And the last, but not least, priority is regarding public-private partnerships. So this is the way we think we need to work. And of course, to us, it's crucial. This sector can be recovered if public and private sector work together. So public sector, because of course, public sector is in charge of public policy and leading strategies that can help the whole sector. But private sector is more speedy, more rapid, and of course, they are the ones that need more help today, because the economic recovery has to be a priority to help all the private sector, because of course, thanks to the private sector, the economy grows. So it's, when I talk about private sector, it's not only about big companies. It's partnering with SMEs, partnering with companies, partnering with entrepreneurs, partnering with new ways of developing technologies. Why? Because of course, entrepreneurs can bring innovative solutions, and government can open the doors to execute and to pilot those technologies for good, for better, and of course to recover the tourism efficiently. So that was my message for today. I of course want to thank you for this invitation, and of course do not hesitate to visit the UNWTO website, where we have everything. We have a microsite specialized on COVID-19, where you can see what I told you today and even more regarding the policies, the update of the openness of the countries, the tourism campaigns, the challenges that we are launching regarding innovation, etc., etc. So once again, thank you. And my last message is that all of us, we are all responsible of the tourism recovery, and each of us need to add value in order to develop a more inclusive, innovative, and sustainable sector. So thank you so much.
Hi, Natalia. Before you leave, I just wanted to if you can say a couple of sentences about how you see the role of female within the women within the tourism, and if you see that it's going to change, or if you are seeing any trend or from the positive or negative point of view coming from the COVID impact on the role of women in the tourism industry.
No, to me it's quite the same. The challenges are the same before and after COVID-19.
Okay.
Tourism, as I already said, is the most important economic sector when it comes to hire women. But our challenge is not hiring women, is empowering women to lead and to be more inside the boards, inside the executive and directive positions. So that's why I really think that technology can help, because if you, for example, I give you an example from all the startup competitions that we have done, more than 30% of the startups are led by women. So we see there an opportunity. Why? Because of course, if women are leading by example and are bringing added value solutions to change the way people are traveling, the more empowering they can be, because of course the startup ecosystem is really agile and of course can help. Nonetheless, on the traditional side of the economy, we need to empower more women, but this is not because of COVID-19, it was before. So we have the same challenge. So of course we need to still work on the matter. Lucky us, we are not that unequal as other sectors, but we need of course to lead by example and to promote more women in politics and more women of course in executive positions. Another good thing is that of course, for example, half of the ministers in Africa are women, the ministers of tourism. So that's very good. But of course, it's only half in Africa. But when you come to Europe or when you come to the Americas, 80% are men, and the others, the 20% or less, are women. So of course, we need to empower more women in high responsibility levels.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing these insights and your time with us, Natalia. And hope that is the first but not the last participation that you will have in our webinars.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Miguel.
Goodbye. So we continue with the panel, and I just wanted to give a few figures that I think highlight the importance of tourism in the worldwide economy. We are talking about 8.9 trillion contribution to the GDP worldwide, 10% of the global GDP, 330 million jobs, one job, so 10% of the jobs in the world are related to tourism and travel. And also the COVID is putting in risk between 100 to 120 million jobs related to tourism, and could rise to a loss of the 910 billion US dollars, which is amazing. So taking these numbers, which is give a very clear image about the importance of tourism in the worldwide economy, I just would like to introduce the three panelists that we have invited for this webinar, and I will leave them to give their opinion about how they see the impact of the COVID in the tourism, and also how they feel that is could be the fastest way to recover the travel and tourism industry in the coming months. So we are. It's a pleasure to introduce to Mongwa. Is the name is cut in the screen. Sorry for that. Is our representative from the World Business Angel Forum in Zambia, and is also has been very active member of the World Business Angel Forum Global Women Leader Committee. We also she's also a MICE industry expert in Africa, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us in the webinar. We also have Valentina. Well, today's difficult family names for me. Ondo.
Yes.
She is an academic and research from the University of Salento in Italy and specialized in the tourism innovation. And finally, Nofar Nistani, she's the director of the Jerusalem Entrepreneurship Tourist Hub. And it's also a pleasure to have her here to talk about the innovation and entrepreneurship in a so well-developed ecosystem like Israel. So maybe Nofar, you can maybe start talking about how you see the impact of the COVID in tourism and travel, and how you feel and will be the recovering of the industry in the coming months.
For sure. First of all, thank you very much for hosting me tonight. And it's a great pleasure to be with these great colleagues with us tonight in this panel. So I can look at this question from two aspects. The first one is the aspect of the city of Jerusalem. And since Jerusalem is one of the most visited cities in Israel, almost 4.49 million tourists who visited the city in 2019. And it's something which is one of the greatest economic sectors for the city. It's something that the municipality and the country of Israel are putting much effort for supporting and developing, like on a daily basis. And we definitely feel it. I have daily meetings with both entrepreneurs from the tourism community in Jerusalem and in Israel in general, but also startups and mid-sized businesses who are just dealing and trying to understand how they need to figure out and to go back to normal life, to go back to normal after the COVID. And I think that one of the most important things that we need to do, and it's something that I absolutely agree with Natalia, with dear Natalia, who just left us. And it's something that we need to do on trust, but it's something which is really, really easy to say, but it's so hard to do. We need to put so much effort in so many levels. First of all, is to show that our country is safe, is to show that our city is safe. It's both psychological places, but it's also very, very physical things and acts that we need to do as a city and as a country. On the other hand, is to give them a new adventure. We need to take people out of their houses. They have been in their houses for 2.5 months. And we actually need to give them a new experience. We need to show them that there are more new destinations that they need to discover and they need to see. Therefore, we need to use technology for that. We need to implement in this very, very traditional sector some very, very needed cures. And I truly believe that these cures are technology and startups and travel tech. And therefore, as the city of Jerusalem, we are supporting, actually these days, we have decided to put money and to fund some of the startups in Israel, just because we truly believe that technology is one of the cures for these challenging times. We truly believe in our community. We absolutely believe that tourism will come back. It will be a bit different, but it will come back. But therefore, we need to prepare ourselves, and we need to teach our audience to come back to Jerusalem or to any other destination by using, lots of actions on the ground, using technology, using the new innovation, and to show people and to show our audience that we are taking care of them, and they are not left alone.
Thank you, Nofar, for your input. Now we pass to Mwemba to have your view about how you feel that the COVID is impacting tourism in Africa. How do you see the potential recovery in the coming months?
Thank you very much, Miguel, and good evening, everybody. I think the impact is quite significant because even as I'm sitting with you now, my company is pretty shut down for the last 3 months. So it's both personal and at industry level, I think it's a total disaster, for lack of a better term. So the tourism industry was the first out, and it will obviously be on the part that I work in, which is the business tourism. So tourism, just for those that are not very familiar, tourism is divided into 2 sectors. So there is the leisure, and then there is the business tourism, which is the meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions, and everything like special events, weddings, concerts. All those form what is referred to as the business tourism, and that is the space that I work in. So the impact there, I think the first big one was the ITB in Berlin. I think that was about the 28th of February. That one just kind of shook everybody in the sector because you don't hear a cancellation at that level and think you can, everybody just followed through from that because they set the standard. So now to kind of come back to the conversation of what has been the impact, I think the real impact is the realization of how big governments actually depend on tourism, how big the tourism sector is, how big the value chain is, and the entire industry ecosystem. Before, even in my own country, we were a part of the economy, but our significance was we were there, we were players. And I come from a very significant destination because of the Victoria Falls. So we've got a lot of leisure, and then it's one of the world's natural wonders. So that alone pushes numbers for us because we are a destination of preference because of our geographical landscape. But in terms of meetings, we are now sitting in a situation where we're asking how and when will the industry recover? Because remember, it's things like flights, it's going to live in hotels, it's sitting next to people at a meeting. I think Natalia did cover the issue of the commodification of trust. When are we going to get back to trust flying, to trust sitting next to people? And then also, I think the biggest impact is going to be on the liability of employers. How do they send out? Because remember, when we're having these meetings, people are actually traveling because they've been sent by their employer or the organization that they represent. So now it's going to be how far does the employer's liability go if they send somebody into the destination for a meeting? Now, speaking at continental level, I think there will be a significant paradigm shift because for Africa, I think we have for a long time depended on the numbers that come from outside Africa. So even when we are measuring the number of tourists who are dependent on how many came out of Europe, out of Asia, out of the Americas, we are a continent of 1.2 billion people, and we've never made that number count in terms of tourism because even just packaging at regional level, we're always looking to sell outside Africa we're never selling, even our domestic tourism is not as significant as our international numbers. So now we are going to now have to start relooking at how we are packaging in terms of the destination, how we're promoting, and just pretty much just getting creative in how we're going to digitize our destinations. So just before I finish, I did get a video from the Victoria Falls, what I was making reference to, a location in my country. There is a video that was circulating about 3 weeks ago, and because I was feeling I had cabin fever, the video that was circulated made me make the decision to leave my house and drive 7 hours to go to the Victoria Falls. Now, I've never done that. If I was going to the falls, I would normally be going because I have to work. But because of COVID and sitting in the house, I just needed to get me and the kids out, and we went. And the digital images did a lot of justice because they were able to get me out of the house. But what they didn't do for me was the feeling of that water hitting you on your body. And that is where the human and the physical experience can never be replaced. So yes, the industry is going to recover. The recovery will be very different, very confusing, and we are hoping that we will soon be able to start figuring things out. But I think everybody now, because we are all at a zero race line, it doesn't matter which location you are, which country, everybody is figuring this thing out as we go. And that is the real struggle, because there isn't a real template that we could, if you put something 6 feet away from somebody, a meter apart, tomorrow somebody will wake up and say, you have to work with maybe 10 meters or, so we have to, I think, work at regional level to look at what is the best case scenario. Remember with the yellow fever CAD, we had a scenario where you had to get your yellow fever vaccination at country level. And when you traveled, if they couldn't see the proof that you had the vaccination, you were able to get it at the airport. Maybe that is where we're going, but there is, we're still a long way. So with the leisure side of business, where like Nofar is saying in Jerusalem, it's very quick to recover, because people like me that will want to, get out of the house immediately, there's no liability issues. It's me and my family. I can, jump on the plane and hope for the best. There's no employers involved in that conversation. That is going to come back far much quickly than the business tourism, the MICE tourism. So there is hope for recovery. And I think with the Zoom fatigue, people actually want to be around other people more now than ever. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you with many of the points that you are touching. Finally, Valentina, we would like to know your insight about from in Italy perspective, and also as an academic and university point of view.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me in this panel, in this webinar. I have a presentation. I will try to share if I can. Otherwise, I will just make my comments. And in which I have. Do you see it?
Yep.
Do you see the presentation?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what Miguel said before, and also Natalia, we know that the impact of COVID in the tourism industry has created a real collapse for the industry. And also, as Mrs. Mongau says, it is the first sector that was shut down, and it will be the last one that will open up. So based on the data from UNWTO, World Travel Organization, as also Martin says, travel and tourism GDP will have a loss of $2.1 trillion in 2020. The tourism employment is really at risk. Because we are going to have from 100 to 120 million jobs that will be lost, and we have a loss of international tourists from going from 850 million to 1.1 billion international tourists that will be missing to travel around the world. And also we have 100% destinations that are with travel restrictions today. And this is some graphs from UNWTO that are making the updates for each month and for the different continents of the world. And if we see the first graph in the world, we are going to have minus 57% of tourist arrivals in March. We had in March 2020, and in the other graph we see that we will maybe have a recovery of the tourists in July, as Natalie said before, if we are going to open in July. Otherwise, otherwise we are going to start this recovery in August or in other months of the years. However, as the graph demonstrates, this recovery will be just to gain something from the tourist industry, but the numbers are not going to be positive. They are going to remain negative for a long time. The situation in Italy is not so different, obviously. As you might know, as the other panelist says, for their country, also Italy is a country that is highly dependent on the tourism, and its impact, COVID-19 impact in the tourism of Italy is really shocked. Italy is expected to register a decrease of 28.5 million tourist arrivals, and this will make that domestic and outbound trips in Italy will jump by 4 million. This is because Italy is mainly dependent on international tourists, on the foreign presences for 69%. So being the destination locked on, being closed, these international tourists are not going to be present in the country for some months. In fact, these other graphs from tourism economics show that although we are going to open in some way in 2020, the international tourist spending will recovery just on 2023. As from this graph, we see that the positive numbers will turn to be just on 2023. But what it is going, what is being said by different experts, and what it is being promoted, is to try to make a domestic tourism. And from this domestic tourism, based on the calculations done, there will be a recovery maybe on 2022. We will start this domestic tourism in 2020, but however, the numbers will go to remain really, really low, and just will serve as a survival mean for the tourism sector. We also know that tourism is a transversal business, and it has multiplier effect. So 100 euros that are spent for example, by Italians or foreign tourists in the tourism sector are distributed between hospitality, catering, commerce, transport, etc., etc. So the impact is really important, is crucial for this industry. Going to the main point of this also webinar about women in tourism, according to UNWTO, the employment in accommodation and food services for the woman is at high risk, as also for the other persons that are working in this industry. But from this graph we see that in the tourism industry 54% of women are employed in this sector. So this is a real challenge for women employment in this moment. And in Italy the things are not different. Also in Italy, in the tourism sector, most of the of the jobs are covered by women. More than 55% of total workers are of women that work in hotels or other tourism services. However, a good news, a good opportunity that comes out from the surveys and from the studies is that 1 out of 3 entrepreneurs in Italy is female. And also, as the previous panelist says, this is a good opportunity for the recovery of jobs, for the recovery of women employment in this sector as well as in the other sectors. Because I believe that one of the main points for the recovery of tourism will be the entrepreneurship capacity of people, the entrepreneurship capacity of public and private sector. Now, the crisis of COVID is an unprecedented crisis. We have been impacted by other crises in the tourism, such as September 11 or different tourism attacks or hurricanes, etc. But this has been for a short period of time, and the recovery has been quickly. While this time we don't know how to recover, and we have different challenges for different sectors of this industry, of this complex, of this ecosystem that is tourism. We need, as Natalie says, we need to define procedures and standards for how to open beaches. Are we going to use this plexiglass? No, maybe, I hope no. How we are going to make these sanitizations, and are we going to make an alignment of protocols for sanitization between different countries in order to create the trust that is necessary for the customers and for the tourists? How we are going to open and to manage the restaurants, the operations between the restaurants, as well as airlines and airports. So the current challenges to face today are obviously, first of all, the financial liquidity for businesses, then confidence, safety, and security, dealing with equipments and protocols for cleaning and sanitization, recover and protect jobs, and here public governments and public organizations can do need to make a good job and to help private companies, private industry to protect jobs. We need to have customer care, how to deal with the cancellation and refunds for all those tourists that have canceled their travel bookings. Obviously, we have to rethink about tourism. If we are going to promote and to realize again an over tourism, or we need more to focus in an under tourism, in a sustainable one. And also the digitalization is an opportunity for the tourism sector recovery in this moment. As Natalie says before, the technology before was a good thing. Now it is a must. And we need in the tourism recovery today to manage the tourism movement in 3 destinations: in the generating region, or in the origin destination, in the transit destination, and then in the tourism destination region. And for all these 3 destinations, there is the need to have this trust, this confidence of the tourists that are traveling. To my opinion, some of the opportunities that will be important for the recovery of the sector is first of all the technological opportunities, as it is being also promoted, as it is being realized by many accommodation structures, destination, etc. They are focusing on the technological tools and instruments that that can help in some way to recover tourism in order to protect or to realize the so-called social distancing by realizing web check-in, for example, contactless payments, or using some instruments like robots for different kind of jobs and works to be realized in the hotel. The second element, according to me, for the recovery is the entrepreneurship capacity, as I said before. In fact, it is in the middle of the crisis, as Einstein said, that the great opportunities lies. And in fact, in this screen here, you see, I don't know if you have seen in the newspaper, two startups, two innovations realized by two companies in Italy. One that realized the diving masks as into respiratories for COVID-19 patients, and another one, a company in Brescia that realized through the 3D technology the stamp, the realization of the valvulus for the hospitals. So the same is in the tourism industry. So technology and entrepreneurship together will lead the way of the tourism industry toward the innovation that is really important. In fact, we have seen during this time that some innovation in the tourism sector has been realized, and the tourism sector has responded in a good way in some cases to these challenges by organizing online training, online events, online promotion of destination, as before Monga was providing us this personal experience through the virtual tours that has been proposed to us. It has been possible to maintain for us the attention.
Valentina, okay. Sorry, I think that you still have 10 slides more, and maybe
okay,
you will have the opportunity to talk about innovation and entrepreneurship in the next question. So
yes, okay.
Coming back to Nofar and Mwemba, Nofar, just want to have your view about we are going to unite two of the questions. Is about innovation, how you see that innovation technology and also COVID can have an impact on the woman empowerment within the tourist industry. So if you can give us your view about that point.
First of all, as I mentioned, and I see that my colleagues are definitely, we see an eye in eye for that, that technology is something which is must have for the industry. That tourism today is a very, very traditional way. People really, really like to know that they gave the customer the really personal attached. They gave them what they need. They have someone they can approach to. And I think that until now, we didn't see the need in the market for technology. And I guess that it also impacted angels and VCs and also governments to actually put some money and to invest some new technologies for this industry. But I believe that now, I know that COVID have brought some difficulties and challenges for many of us, but I think that, as Valentina just mentioned, it's actually an opportunity and we must recognize it now. As the city of Jerusalem, just once COVID exploding in Jerusalem, we understood that we have to do something to maintain our customers to come back to Jerusalem using technological skills, which means that we actually opened a new website for our visitors from abroad, which is, if you can't travel to Jerusalem, Jerusalem is traveling to you. And we approached to the whole tourism sector in Jerusalem, and we actually helped them and gave them tools to transform what they're offering on their day-to-day let's say, museums and the Western Wall and Al-Aqsa and so and so. And we just transform it to a very, very virtual experience. So this was like the first thing that the city of Jerusalem have understood. And I think that also the country of Israel, with the ecosystem in Israel, we have angels, we have investments for travel tech, and also the city of Jerusalem. We are trying to give, it's a very, very hard time also for investments and VCs. But as I mentioned, since we see technology as the cure for these challenges, we actually said, okay, we are going to invest in new travel tech companies. We are going to open our city to POC for travel tech companies. We are allowing them to get our finance. We are allowing them to approach our community, our academia, to approach the Israeli ecosystem, and to get new ideas, to get new fundings. And by that, we are actually supporting the industry which is suffering the most at the moment. And if we're talking about empowering women in these times, I totally agree that it was hard before, and it's like something that we need to push much more harder this time. Since we see in tourism that the engagement of women it's a growing number. You can't ignore it. But as Natalia mentioned, it has to be on the economical level, but it also has to be in industrial and also in international and national levels. We must push them to go to higher positions. We need to make this situation, as you know, as kind of opportunity again for these women to understand what they are capable of, and they need to go up, and we need to give them this push also from the very business and private sectors in startups and in the city level, but also from our ministers, from our prime ministers, from our presidents. They need to understand that it's supposed to be a goal, not only for them. It's also, and it needs to be a wide thing it's a wide goal. And in Africa, I was so glad to hear the numbers of women in such a high level and key factors positions. It's actually quite promising. So I believe that we are in the right track, but as for startups, it's also for women empowering in like all levels.
Okay, thank you for your insight and offer. I think that, just a brief comment, I think that almost everybody knows that the COVID has been a very good experience for showing the world how good can be women on government. And many of the countries that they are dealing better with the COVID are managed by women. So now talking with Mwemba, I would like to have your view about innovation and together with the women issue in the from the Zambia or African perspective. How do you feel about that?
Okay, thank you once again, Miguel. I think I will start with the gender and the women issue. On the African continent, and I think globally, tourism is one of the sectors that is actually female dominated. Women are in the majority in Africa. Now, where it becomes an issue, it's really where the decision making happens. If you look at the meetings that we host, you find that the PCO will be female. The ones that are making the decision about the event and everything, you are probably making the presentations to an 80-20 type of board where mostly they're men. And then the other issue will be that most of your suppliers in our value chain, the AV is usually male, most of where the money for the event goes, these organizations are actually male-led. So the key players who are the professional conference organizers, the planners, most of these are women, but it is the other sectors that, the other elements of the meetings that are predominantly male, and that is where the problem still lies. So we are winning on certain fronts, but a lot more can and needs to be done in that conversation. Now, when it comes to innovation, I think I did make reference to the issue of how do we come back, when do we come back? We are an industry of gathering. We are, we gather people. That is how we make the money. So if people don't gather, we are not in business. If people don't fly, we're not in business. So everybody has to now think, how are we going to come back from this? And technology is really becoming, whoever, leverages technology is the one that leads. Now, remember that we've already been leading in this space, in the sense that when people are coming to these events, we already have the QR codes, we already have their bios, already that is the contact tracing data that is needed if we are going into an event. And in the difference between a meeting and a concert is that people are a bit more organized, people are a bit able to abide, because we're working from places that have got their own protocols. So the differentiator is really going to be how quickly people adapt, how innovative the entrepreneurs and the developers are in terms of how are they taking advantage, because there is quite a bit of opportunity in developing products and services that are going to be used by the tourism sector, but it's how soon these things get on the market, because already I think we have had the registrations, the tags that are already electronic that we've already been using. So it's just how are we going to, take them a level up to be able to use them for health checks as well, or even just how are we using them to keep data. So I think that for me is the innovation conversation. But I know that rather than coming back to this, I know that the next part of your conversation is really going to be around human capital, and I thought, let me just throw that one in. So there is one of my favorite philosophers, his name is Eric Hofer, an American. He said, in a time of drastic change, it is the learners who inherit the future. The learned usually find themselves in a world that no longer exists. And that is the scenario that we find ourselves in. We have, I think Natalia made reference to the fact that we work with the highest unskilled labor globally, the tourism sector, because most of us survive on talent, and there is a lot of dependency on basically the cheap labor. So it's not that there is no professional learning paths, but in most areas they are not defined. The career or the learning paths are not defined. So people actually grow into their jobs, or they adapt to the jobs mainly because of the unemployment. So you're like, okay, let me go and try out this. Or somebody started working, say, for an exhibitions company. They were a handyman and they've grown up and now they're full-time rigger. There is no proper certification. In Africa, I can tell you now, because all my certifications I've had to get out of the Americas. And I had to go to school, and my case studies are based on the Super Bowl and other predominantly American activities. And that is because maybe I am able to understand better than somebody that hasn't been in that environment. But what does that do for my region? Because if we're going to talk about the human factor, because as it is, we all have what has been working before. We've got our geographical landscapes, we've got our attractions that we've built. Now, our people are going to be our highest asset value. And if we don't invest in them, we're going to lose, because it is where the best skilled people are, is where the people are going to go, because I am going to trust that where these people are certified, or this area is actually putting an interest in making sure their managers are up to date, their support staff is up to date. That is where we need to direct our attention, because my attractions are there waiting and standing and waiting for the people. But my people have never been my focus until now, where I'm thinking, how am I going to differentiate in this market? How am I going to add, how am I going to be competitive? So now we're going to have to look at adapting learning content. That is where even Project Manny should be going, where we're looking for financing rather than focusing on maybe who should, which infrastructure should we build. Maybe now is the time to say how much investment can we make in people and what type, because this is a global industry. The skills should be mobile, the skills should be recognized, but we are working with the skills that are coming to us without adaptation, where people are sending these skills. So I think for me, that is where I am looking at the future of the industry.
Okay, very interesting comments. So Valentina, your time, later we will give 10 minutes or 15 minutes for the attendees to ask any question. And there is some comments quite interesting, focusing in the business and investment in tourist innovation and startups. So Valentina, your comments on innovation.
Yes, I will continue with my presentation. And because although I was prepared for the same questions you are making to me, so maybe it's better also to show. According to me and according to the studies I have realized with some colleagues, to prepare for the future, we need basically four pillars to develop: the digital technologies, the entrepreneurship skills that include digital skills, social and green skills, the new venture creation, so promotion and the sustainment of startups, and the creation and of the new business models. In the future, we need to first of all, focus on customers, so understand which will be the new behavior of our customers. Obviously, after COVID, we will have a new customer need, a new customer behavior. Embrace the technology as an enabler for improving our performance. Promote a new economy, promote new business models, and don't forget for the sustainable development. As Natalia says before, we have mentioned sustainable development before, but we have done very few things for it. Today, in the recovery phase, we need to think more of this element. The technological opportunities are a lot. There are many technologies that are available to the tourism industry and that are going to be used for the recovery phase. But in many cases, we need to develop the digital skills for tourism because they are lacking. We need to develop skills that are necessary for making big data analysis, for making search optimizations, for social networking, for online collaboration and online marketing. And we have discovered through the different projects that we have realized in the university, like the most recent one, an Interreg Italy, Albania, Montenegro, for smart tourism development, in which we have we found out that there is a low digitalization of private companies that work in the tourism, and also there is low level of knowledge regarding the technological opportunities for the tourism sector. For these three countries, Italy, Albania, and Montenegro. And this is a study we have realized recently in 2018-19. Also, another study that I have realized with two colleagues of mine is about the entrepreneurship education in the tourism, and mainly what is the role that universities can play today and the training centers can play today in order to realize and to to create the entrepreneur mindset in the students in order that they will be prepared tomorrow when they go to work to transform ideas, technologies into the commercially viable products and services. Turning to women opportunities, in a recent study in 2018, we have realized a study relating to the impact that the new emerging digital technologies could have for the women and for their entrepreneurship. Departing from the main challenges that the women face in order to be an entrepreneur, in order to get in the world of entrepreneurship, we find out that through the digital technologies can offer different opportunities for women to overcome some of the inhibiting factors that they have always encountered in their way for entrepreneurship. Also, technologies can help them to realize more performant processes and to access more information, resources, and knowledge worldwide. And thirdly, the digital technologies can help them also to network, so to share experiences and to share their point of view regarding their ideas. We have coined in this publication a new concept that we are going to decline it more, to describe it more, that is digital woman entrepreneurship, with which we mean relevant socioeconomic and technological phenomenon when the innate ability of women to sense and act on opportunities combined with the new technologies can create options for new businesses, for new ventures, and for new startups.
Okay, so
Miguel, is it possible just to add another sentence, like a really short one?
Yes.
In addition to what we just heard, I truly believe that if we will have our panel in 1 year from today, we will hear like definitely an enormous change in the travel tech and entrepreneurship in travel. I think that since this industry, the tourism industry, until now was so traditional, something that technology wasn't that engaged in, the solutions and the startups, we saw, very, very traditional and some important habits in the tourism that were given some solutions. But I think that this COVID has brought us to rethink about our vacation and our tourism experience. And I think that COVID will bring us some new opportunities to see tourism in a whole aspect, in a all other way. I think that hotels, conventions, MICEs, everything will be changed. And I truly believe that actually this time and this period not only will bring more ideas of startups, it will make us to think about tourism in a whole different way. For example, lobbies in hotels, we will have to put some attention on that to see how we solve problem. Until now, we saw lobby, as a nice place to sit in. Airplanes, we will need to see how we deal with new opportunities of, toilets and so. So I think that some things that we took for granted won't be like that anymore.
Okay, there is a couple of questions from the public or from the audience that I want to ask you. One is there is some comments that we should focus more in the business case and why investing in tourism and both in the traditional activities and also in the technology, startup, tourism, and travel tech. I understand the point because now maybe it's not the most, appealing industry, and there is other like health or education that they are taking more higher profile. But in your very, very briefly, please, what in your opinion should make investors trust tourism and continue to invest in both in the traditional, say, tourism and travel industry, and the innovation and startup vertical of in travel tech. So Mwemba, maybe you can give your point.
Okay, so I did see a couple of questions as well in the chat box. I think just for starters, now this is me putting my mentor's hat on. I think right now, we come from a background where we're always telling entrepreneurs and teaching people what problems are you a solution to. The world has a problem. And the tourism problem is a 9 billion problem. So there is so much opportunity there that it is going to take those investors that come in quickly to really rip. So we are not yet at the point where we're going to be able to say what is somebody's return on investment, but it is what are you actually going to be a problem, a solution to which problem. That is where the money is going to be. The bigger the problem, the bigger the payday. So for me, speaking to the WBAF family, I'm saying tourism may not have been where you were looking previously, but now you know that this is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that has basically a ripple effect. Whatever happens in this industry affects 10 other industries. So we have the airlines crippled, the hotels are empty, bed spaces are empty. Look for those startups, look at the people that are developing solutions to the problems that this industry is facing. Start looking for them in your countries, in other countries. Use the WBAF platform to say, look, I'm looking for startups that are skewed towards tourism because the paychecks are going to be big. People need to come back. The world needs to come back and meet. And until we have solutions to the problems that have been listed, and the list for the tourism sector seems to be endless, because it's very easy tomorrow when the WHO says the threat level of COVID has been lifted, people will simply go back to their offices, but not for us, because we still have a list of problems. So it is now that we're going to have to depend on innovation. We're going to depend on basically the startup in any country really that is going to have solutions for us. So for me, I think I will be very reluctant in responding from that perspective of what is the return on investment. And what we're saying is don't focus. I think there was an issue of the gender issue here. So again, it's not just an issue of women for the sake of women, but it is trying to, equalize opportunities, bearing in mind that maybe there has been some disadvantage previously. So even when we are now making decisions, let's make them cautiously, saying, okay, if I'm going to look for the best people, I'm going for a 50-50,
okay,
and that is going to be my approach.
Sorry, we only have 2 minutes more. I just want you to take profit that NOFAR is in a very well-developed ecosystem. How do you see the appetite of investors and VCs and business angels for the travel tech? They continue to be interested on this vertical, or they are focusing more in other sector right now?
I think that you just touched the painful point for me these days. It's actually to sit with VCs and angels and to actually explain them that they need to see the macro picture here. And I know it's really, really painful to dig into your pocket and to give some startup money in these difficult days. It's not something that I'm taking for granted. But on the other hand, I think that this amazing event, I just need to record it and to give it to them, just to show them what are the great opportunities that this industry actually have. I think that Maramba just mentioned one small point in this whole industry, and it's such a great opportunity, business opportunity for them. I got calls from 6-7 different startups this week just looking for new investment. So I think that, yeah, I definitely feel that the pain in the market. I definitely feel the missing of like fluent money and cash. But I think that this is the big opportunity for us just to go and to tell them, you know what, you have to look now, not now, on the micro size of the picture. You have to look in a year and ahead. And to show them, okay, you know, if you will invest now, you will see like the greatest success for your money. You will see that if you invested now, your money was invested in a good way. Since people sat at home and they want to go out for vacations, so your money won't be spent.
Nofer, it was a pleasure having you. Hopefully, will be the first of many webinars that you could participate. And Valentina, you have around 30 seconds for finishing or 1 minute, because I don't know what happened when we overpass our time.
I finished my presentation, but I agree with Munga and Nistani. We don't have to think of micro. We don't have to. The investors don't have to see the situation of COVID, but what will come later. And tourism with recovery and technology for tourism has been part of it for many years. And to my opinion, it will continue to be a great opportunity for tourism that could be also upscaled in other sectors. What you do for tourism, you can also use in other sectors. And as Munga says before, what you do in tourism in one sector can be multiplied for 10. So this is why investors have to invest in the startups of tourism, according to me.
Okay, my final words is that it has been a pleasure to moderate the panel and to be with all of you. And there is one comment in the chat that I think is true and is relevant to be said. And everybody that is in the investing in startups, at least from the statistic point of view, is more and more clear that investing in a startup with women founders or teams are giving better results than the only men startups. So hopefully that we will see more and more women entrepreneurs and startups led by women that will give good results and profit for them and for the investor investing in the companies. Okay, so hopefully we will have another opportunity to talk about tourism. As Nofer saying, 1 year, maybe the scenario will be totally different and hopefully much more positive.
Yeah, definitely. Miguel, thank you very much for organizing this, and thank you very much for all the panelists and the attendance to this event. It was great.
Thank you. And also thank you to Malak, the Secretary General of the Global Women Committee, and has been also supporting the organization of the whole thing. Okay,
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.